Our active pattern across the state of Florida going to continue through at least the end of the work week. What's going on, guys? I'm certified meteorologist Jonathan Kagas. In this video, we are going to track this active pattern. I want to show you future radar from a Central Florida perspective. Then we'll broaden out and show you the entire state of Florida. If you want to find a specific part of this video, I'll have the time codes in the description below so you can quickly move across and find what you are looking for. Just like what we saw on Thursday, the areas that are seeing the extra clouds and rain are going to be a little cooler. It's not going to be a refreshing cool by any means, but it's certainly better than the 105 to 110 or 15 that it's been feeling like last week. So the storms and rain and clouds helping us out a little bit. Then we're going to end this video with a quick tropical update. That wave that we've have our eyes on towards the Cabo Verde Islands, way out in the Atlantic. The chances continue to grow with that. Hey, before we get into the video, I want to show you here a shot of this ominous cloud coming in on Daytona Beach. This was from earlier on July 27th as we were tracking storms earlier from the Atlantic moving in. And again, this is going to be the theme of the rest of Thursday and then getting into Friday as well, as these kind of multi-weather systems slide on through, the biggest being a tropical wave supplying the state of Florida with tropical moisture. Here's the deal. There's 6 o'clock. Scattered storms still around. Trying to get home from work. You're going to be doing some dodging tonight. There's 10. Of course, if you're local watching on the Space Coast, SpaceX trying that double launch, weather is going to be an issue. I don't think you're going to be able to see it from far away from the Space Coast if, in fact, they do get them off. But nonetheless, scattered storms are going to be right along the Space Coast. That could be problematic. Again, they can't launch if they have thunderstorm anvil clouds close to the launch pads. Can, of course, produce lightning. There's 11 o'clock on your Thursday, same deal. Now, getting into Friday, the biggest opportunity for rain is going to be right along the coast. You see also some junk in the Gulf of Mexico. That is as that tropical wave kind of pinwheels up the Florida peninsula and then eventually out later on Friday. There's 2 o'clock on your Friday, more scattered storms. And then I think the biggest influx of rain, there's 6, 7 o'clock. We're going to really generate a lot of storms right smack dab to the I-4 corridor, right on through Central Florida. So heads up, Lakeland, Sanford, Orlando, getting towards Astor as well. Bunnell, mainly to our west. You see it there. It could be a rockin' Friday evening as your weekend gets underway. In terms of your high temperature forecast, we're talking upper 80s and lower 90s again, right around where we should be, likely a couple of notches below average again, as what we saw on Thursday, the extra clouds, the rain, keeping things cooler. Again, it's not really removing the humidity. This is not from a cold front or anything like that. It is, though, going to help prevent the sun from baking us all afternoon. Here's the deal. Showed you this in our previous video the other day, our setup. Here's upper low number 1. Upper low number 2 is out here, and then right smack dab in the middle is our tropical wave. So the 3 of these things kind of working in tandem to produce this big area of unsettled weather, this big area of thunderstorms from the Florida Straits through the Bahamas, parts of the Turks and Caicos even, and then up the Florida Peninsula, even into the extreme southeast corner of the United States, Georgia, into southern South Carolina as well. This thing is eventually going to work its way up and out and then kind of clear out by Saturday. Now, storm chances are still going to be elevated on Saturday, but they're going to be back to our kind of more routine thunderstorm pattern. I want to show you the wide view of Florida now. If you're tuning in from anywhere outside of Central Florida too, this also kind of tells the story here of this little weak area of low pressure. Again, it's not tightly closed. It's not compact. If it was, it would be a tropical depression, but it's not. So it is a tropical wave. It is an open wave. I drew that wave axis for you, those dotted lines or those dashed lines just a second ago. You see that right here. Kind of watch in this area. You'll see a little subtle spin. See that little curl? It's very subtle, but it's there. That is our tropical wave. You see all the heavier rain still coming out of the Bahamas, right around Fort Myers, Naples area, Sarasota, St. Pete. Again, this is going to be beneficial for us on the Gulf Coast of Florida. We are going to get a little hotter, but we do need the rain as that rain comes in a little bit later. And you see more scattered storms. There's 1, 2 o'clock in your afternoon. And then we're going to fire things up more. So again, this wide view kind of shows basically right along the I-4 corridor. Again, if you take 95 to I-4 right across, that's going to be your highest opportunity for showers and thunderstorms down into Miami, Fort Lauderdale. A few stray showers around, but I think by this point, the highest opportunity for rain going to head towards the Panhandle, Central Florida, and then Northeast Florida, closer to Jacksonville, St. Augustine, Palm Coast. High temperatures tomorrow, still going to be on the cool side. Again, when I say cool, it's not going to be cool. I don't think it's jacket worthy. Upper 80s is still really hot, but a lot of us are going to be in the upper 80s. That's 11 o'clock on your Friday, and we're really looking towards the yellow areas, and you really kind of see that towards Marco Island into Miami. Temperatures in the lower 80s. Again, pretty weird for late July. Nonetheless, there we go, 89 in Orlando, 88 in Jacksonville. The heat back towards the Panhandle. Note the purple here towards Mississippi, Alabama. That's where the crazy stuff continues to bake. But we are under the influence again of the extra clouds and rain from that tropical wave. And that is going to help to keep us, again, relatively cooler. It's not refreshing. It's still going to be ugly. It's still going to be humid. And it may even feel more humid because with the extra clouds around, you don't have the sun to kind of evaporate some of that humidity that's in the atmosphere. So it is going to be sticky, sultry, but it's not going to be as blazing hot. Update on the tropics now. 40% shot over the next 7 days. We talked about this, that the Hurricane Center will likely gradually continue to increase the probabilities of tropical development. In all likelihood, we are going to be looking at our next tropical disturbance, whether it's a depression, storm, or hurricane, of the 2023 hurricane season. You see a nice broad area of orange out here. This is the development zone. So that is why over the next 2 days, this is unlikely to develop. 0% shot. But then once it starts to get closer to the Northeast Caribbean in this area, that is where the Hurricane Center believes that we will start to see some development. Here, of course, are the Leeward Islands, Windward Islands, Northeast Caribbean. In all likelihood, this is going to miss the Caribbean, but if you're watching from Puerto Rico or the Virgin Islands or anywhere in the Leeward Islands specifically, just keep this in the back of your head. Keep on checking back for future forecasts in case something weird would happen. Here's the deal. The Europeans starting to kind of gravitate towards the GFS in terms of the solution with this storm. We also talked about this in an early video, that the European model, for as much praise as it gets from everybody, has its faults. One of them is not developing tropical waves very well in the main development region of the Atlantic, which is where we're watching this thing. Again, main development region, for those that don't know, are right on through here. But you see this area, this is the spin. It's strung out. I always like to say strung out like a string bean, okay? But it finally starts to get its act together. Yesterday, if you watched our earlier video, the European model just kept this thing kind of weak and broad. It's still broad at this point. Time and date on the top of your screen there. It's a little more impressive. But then look, there you go, July 30th. We didn't see this yesterday. It wasn't until it got up to here that it started to even think about consolidating this thing. But we do have kind of a more defined, more well-defined circulation, and that red indicating the rotation. And then there you go. By that point, on July 30th or 31st, according to the Euro, we have a system. Now, the GFS continues to keep it strong. Again, the solution similar early on with this strung out kind of tropical wave, but watch what happens. It quickly gets its act together. There's July 30th again, and we're talking about a likely depression, at least at this point, and then likely something stronger as it works its way around the Bermuda Azores High, which is hanging tight right here. You see this deep clockwise motion around that high pressure that is going to steer it. There's also this dip in the jet stream off of the United States. So with all likelihood, it's going to miss the Northeast Caribbean and hopefully also miss Bermuda, which is right in here because of that trough coming off of the U.S., and then that big chunk of high pressure way out into the Atlantic, going to steer it away. Talked a lot about that. This is not coming to Florida at this point. Again, you always want to keep things open. You always want to make sure you're checking back for those forecasts as well. But nonetheless, I think this one is not going to be a player for Florida in the short term or in the long term. We'll continue to watch. What has been, though, is the Saharan dust, and it's kind of ruling the roost now throughout the entire Gulf Coast of the United States, specifically in Florida. So the rain kind of helping to kind of clear things out a little bit, where it's been kind of ugly in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, down in the Florida Keys as well with the air quality issues. It's still hanging tight in Orlando, through the Central Florida area, Tampa, Sarasota, Bradenton. We've been seeing some of that dust as well, maybe enhancing your sunrise and sunset, and then out towards the Gulf Coast as well. That's where it's really thick, towards the West Gulf Coast, of course, the Florida Gulf Coast, but towards San Antonio, Corpus, and into Houston. That is where some of the nastiest stuff is. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you found this content helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to stay updated on all things Florida weather, of course, as we continue to venture through hurricane season and deal with this weird weather that we've been having, you have to hit subscribe. Please do that. If you click that little alert bell, you will be alerted to any time we post new content. And we will catch you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in.